OTAs at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
And look at this, Lori, bringing us into our next topic. What are your thoughts on Isaiah Neyor, the wide receiver that just keeps getting brought back up? Everybody wants to know about this guy, Ant. Talking about the 53, does he have a shot? The wide receiver room's weird. What are your thoughts on Isaiah Neyor?
I think that's what gives him a shot. It's weird. You know, you're going to have Brandon Ayuk potentially starting on the PUP list. You're going to have a suspension potentially for Demarcus Robinson, which means he's on the exemption list for the owners. So, yeah, I think that there's a chance. And the thing about Isaiah Neyor is he's still, no matter what, going to be 6'4", 220 pounds and run a 4.40. So there's not very many guys that are out there in the league, and not many of the 49ers have had on this football team that can do that. Now, there are developmental issues, things he still needs to get better at. But I thought it was interesting that during the rookie minicamp and things like that, he was getting hyped up. And then when we got to actual OTAs and minicamp, he was kind of getting talked down a little bit because people weren't excited about the way he was catching the football and things like that. But the thing is, this is a developmental guy. And one thing that people forget about these developmental players, and especially young players in general, they have so much they're thinking about early on. Where do I line up? When do I go in motion? Where am I going here? When do I break off this route? There's so much they're thinking about that sometimes catching the football is something that's a little bit more difficult. Once they start to figure it out and you have install the entire time and you had install for training camp, sometimes it slows down. The thing is, when this guy gets into one-on-ones and they start throwing the ball deep down the field and he's matched up against some of the 49ers cornerbacks, if he goes up and makes some big catches, everyone's going to be like, oh, Isaiah Neyor. That is the potential that could get him on the outside. And it was interesting on Bussing with the Boys that George Kittle talked about how he can cover 9.5 yards in 2 steps. That is the type of ridiculous athleticism we're talking about. But I thought Taylor Lewan probably had the best point. Could you see this guy out on the outside as a gunner in special teams? And that's an avenue, if you're going to be a back part of the roster player, that you got to impress on special teams. And that might be an area he sneaks on the team, and that way they can keep that guy for later on because he does have more physical traits than most of the wide receivers in the room.
Yeah, David R. says, Kittle on Bussin' with the Boys is a must-watch. Here's the quote, okay? George Kittle was asked about wide receiver Isaiah Neyor, undrafted free agent. He said, quote, he's a freak. He was running a route, and he got 9.5 yards in 2 strides. It was insane. We watched it 10 times in the tight end room. We were like, how is he doing this? At the bare minimum, he should make the practice squad. He is a freak. End quote. Yeah, those are promising words. And, you know, you pull up Isaiah Neyor on Mock Draftable, and it has all the height, weight, speed testing numbers. I mean, he's crazy. Here are his comps. Quentin Johnson, Jaden Higgins, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, like Chris Conley. And that's the thing. Chris Conley's retired. He's been on this 49ers roster as a special team stud. He was the best special teams player we had last year, in my personal opinion. And he could play all 3 wide receiver spots, especially stretching the field vertically. He was a 4-3 guy. You didn't replace that. You didn't go get a big wide receiver in the draft or free agency that has that kind of speed. So there is a role carved out for an Isaiah Neyor. You just plug him into that Chris Conley role. If he can prove on special teams, which is how he's going to make this roster, and develop into a wide receiver like you talked about. You know, it's funny. It reminds me of that video. I don't know if you've seen it. I posted the other day where like some people are just hanging around in their yard and the mom's like, that kid right there is going to be a professional athlete. You just check. He's so gifted. The dad like throws the football to the kid. It hits him in the face. Like, gets him. Like you got to catch the ball. Now, I'm a Longhorn and I've known Isaiah Neyor for a very long time because he came to the University of Texas and was supposed to be a plug-in starter. Well, he tore his ACL before the very first practice. Oh, well, what happened? Xavier Worthy took his starting job at Texas. Well, then he was the number 2 guy. Well, then Adonai Mitchell transfers from Georgia. So then he was the number 3 guy. Well, Jordan Whittington earned that job because he did all the tough work and he was more consistent. All 3 of those guys are solid NFL players now. And like, you can't fault him for that. So he transfers to Nebraska, still had more injury issues. He's just got to stay healthy, allow his athleticism to translate. And I do like this, that the ceiling on Isaiah Neyor, like that's the thing that I like the most. Like, I want guys that are, dude, if this works, could be great. And there just aren't guys built like Isaiah Neyor. So if it does translate, great. But if not, no big deal. It's an undrafted free agent. There's no guaranteed money on the deal. It's not going to hurt anything. But the fact that you have George Kittle already saying this guy's going to be practice squad at worst, I don't know. It's exciting. And you need wide receiver help big time. And so can Isaiah Neyor be that? Do you have him making the 53-man roster? If you had to project it right now, betting money on the line, where yes or no?
I would say no, because I haven't seen anything from him. At training camp, we'll get to see it. Preseason, we'll get to see it. And I think that'll give us a clearer picture on where he is in his development. But the question is going to be, who does make the end of the wide receiver roster with those guys that are going to be on the top being out early and they're being roster spots? Do they go with a veteran? Do they just stash a young player? Do they keep a Junior Bergen because of his return ability? I think he might get challenged a little bit in his return ability. So there is an avenue for a Neyor to make it. I wouldn't bet on it right now because I haven't seen anything that says, that he's going to make it until we get to training camp.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's decide right now. 5 or 6 wide receivers make the actual 53. Your opinion. Let's do it right now. 5 or 6. You got to give me. Don't go through the names yet. We'll go through them one by one.
Okay.
But do you think on the initial 53-man roster, now you got to understand, Ayuk's not going to count. DeMarcus Robinson's not going to count.
Right.
So 5 or 6, because the 49ers teeter-totter between these two.
I think
let's do 6. You think 5?
6? Okay. I'll do 6. I'm good with 6 because it's either way. I think they can stash some players. The only thing that's going to be an issue is if they know they can get veterans to the practice squad that they can use and elevate early on in the season, right? If you can get like a Russell Gage, for instance, to the practice squad and use him in the old Trent Taylor type role, they might do that early on. So that would flip it to 5 if they wanted to keep an extra offensive lineman or defensive lineman. But yeah, I think Kyle would love to keep 6.
All right. They've done this with Willie Snead, Chris Conley, like you talked about, like Trent Taylor. So, all right, let's go through these. Again, Ayuk on the pup and DeMarcus Robinson on the commissioner's exemplar. Juwan Jennings, lock. That's 1. Ricky Pearsall, lock. That's 2. Do you put Jordan Watkins in the lock category?
I do. I think there's too much upside. 4th-round pick. They're not cutting him.
Okay, that's 3. Jacob Cowing?
Yeah, I think he's a lock this year.
Man, who's the 5? Like, you've got Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgins, Junior Bergen, Isaiah Neyor, Malik Knowles, Tariq Owens. I'm very high on Malik Knowles because I don't think that they have anybody like him. But, man, I said let's go with 6 just to be nice, to make it easier. I don't think it's happening. I don't think it's happening. It's going to be 5. And so I'm glad we did this. So who's your 5th? You're the general manager. You're the wide receiver room. Who's your 5th that you're keeping?
I think the young guy with the most upside, right? If Junior Bergen is the guy that's showing out on special teams, it would obviously be him. The problem is Kyle has to make sure he does have one of those wide receivers on the practice squad because Junior Bergen's not taking snaps out there at wide receiver. But Isaiah Neyor would probably be a nice fit. That's a guy that, like we said, if he can play special teams, go in and do some of the dirty work, still has the upside, then you still have the other guys you could keep on the practice squad that you could use. So I think, Hodgins, Russell Gage, and Isaiah Neyor are probably the guys I see the most as a chance to because of some of the traits they have. And a guy like Isaiah Hodgins can block. And so that might be something that they look at because they do need to fill that Chris Conley role. And he could do that early on. And he's a veteran who understands how to play, especially with a couple young pups up there early on with Watkins and Cowing.
Yeah, it's hard to that the wide receiver position is just weird. It's just weird. And so you've got a lot of bodies: Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgins, Junior Bergen, Isaiah Neyor, Malik Knowles, Tariq Owens. Man, you got to have one because if you keep Bergen, that you're going into the season with 4 active wide receivers. No team in the NFL is going to do that. And so then you're going to bump up one of your practice squad guys, one of the vets, whether that's, Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgins. And the 49ers always do this, where they basically do a handshake deal where they're like, look, we're going to cut you, but we're going to bring you back, and we're going to promise you right off the bat, you're activated weeks 1 and week 2. So you're going to get that pay bump and all those things. So you're going to get offers out there. We understand that, but we're going to cut you, and we're going to bring you back, and we're going to activate you week 1, week 2. We're going to elevate you from the squad. You're going to get paid. We got you. And then after that, go wherever you want to go. They do this all the time. They operate within the gray, which I'm okay with. Now, again, wrapping up just the Isaiah Neyor conversation. He's number 72 on our roster countdown, just because I struggle with the short-term impact. Our countdown is just for the 2025 season impact only. I think long-term he's a play, and I did misspeak earlier. I think I said that he had no guaranteed money on his deal, Isaiah Neyor. That's incorrect. He had $259,000 guaranteed, which was not reported when he signed. And so that came out when the contract was turned into the NFLPA. So the 49ers doing some sneaky out there with how much they are paying these undrafted free agents, and I like it. I love to see people get paid. That makes me very excited. And so, yeah, if he could contribute on special teams, can you see a pathway where he makes it just as a wide receiver, or does he have to be a gunner special teams player, Isaiah Neyor, to make the 53?
I think he could, at wide receiver. They got other guys that could do that, do some dirty work. They got cornerbacks and other guys that can play gunner. So I think that there's a shot as long as he develops. It's going to be a big question mark. I mean, he's big time talent, but big time question mark. I think one of the decisions that's going to have to come down is which 49ers player do they think they can get to the practice squad of the young guys, right? Is Isaiah Neyor going to get so much attention, especially because of the things George Kittle's saying right now, that if he has a couple of wild plays, they might not be able to get him to practice squad and they lose him. Or maybe they could get a different guy, a younger guy that no one's really paying attention to their practice squad. So they have to make decisions like that as well.
Yeah. Coward Chipto says Neyor is an automatic, I think is what he's saying, for the practice squad. Yeah, with that guaranteed money, worst case is you cut Isaiah Neyor and he goes and sides with another team. Now, usually whenever you give that much guaranteed, they come back, because that's the idea, is like, man, we already paid you for the practice squad. And you saw that last year with Sam O. You saw it last year with Evan Anderson. You saw it last year with a handful of those undrafted free agent guys that kind of panned out. So that's the pathway. But can you get more? Because the injury to Ayuk and the suspension to Demarcus Robinson, which still hasn't come out yet, leaves a little bit of the door open for what could happen.